If you step outside on a clear night, far from the noise of cities, the sky above feels endless. Stars scatter like soft grains of light across a dark ocean, each one carrying its own story, each one separated from us by distances too vast to measure with ordinary words. Most nights the sky appears the same as it did the night before, but every so often something new appears. A visitor, faint at first, almost hesitant, drifting across the canvas of the night. It is in such quiet ways that discoveries often begin. A tiny point of light, no different from the thousands around it, but moving, ever so slightly and yet undeniably so. In July of 2025, in the deserts of northern Chile, an instrument designed for such vigilance noticed one of these wanderers. The Atlas telescope, perched beneath dry skies, recorded an object speeding across the heavens faster than anything nearby should. Its motion suggested urgency, as if it was simply passing through, unwilling to linger. Astronomers looked closer. Each day its path stretched across distances that dwarfed the scale of the Earth itself. Imagine something so far away, moving so quickly that in a single day it could cross a span 3 times wider than our planet. It was too fast to be a neighbour bound by the pull of our sun. The calculations soon confirmed what some had already begun to suspect. This was not an ordinary comet, nor a mere asteroid. This was an interstellar visitor, a body arriving from beyond the borders of our solar family. For most of human history, such a statement would have sounded like dream or myth. That the sky could carry messengers from other stars, objects born in systems light years away, wandering across the great void and brushing just for a moment against our own world. Today, with our instruments and our patient attention, we can not only notice these visitors but begin to understand them. And this one, given the name 3i Atlas, was unlike any we had encountered before. Its orbit, traced carefully by observatories around the world, revealed a distinctive shape. Not the comforting ellipse of a planet or the long loop of an ordinary comet. Instead, a hyperbola, a path that curves inwards, touches the sun's gravity for a brief moment, and then sweeps away forever, never to return. This is the unmistakable sign of something not born here. It came from the deep dark between the stars, and soon it would vanish back into that vastness again. In such a discovery, there is always a sense of timing, for the cosmos offers glimpses, not guarantees. Each interstellar traveller we notice is unique, and the chance to study them may never repeat. Oumuamua, first seen in 2017, left behind only mysteries, its form too faint and its time too brief for full clarity. Borisov in 2019 granted us more information, more photographs, more chemistry, and now Atlas, larger, heavier, stranger, promised to carry the deepest questions yet. When astronomers first gathered the early data, they saw little more than a faint glow, as though a grain of dust had caught the light of a distant lantern. Yet behind that glow lay a story billions of years old, stretching across distances the human mind struggles to hold, and so they prepared. Telescopes around the globe turned their eyes skyward, ready to follow this guest wherever it wandered. Satellites and spacecraft would join them, each tool straining to catch what little detail the heavens might allow. And as you listen, imagine yourself watching that faint star-like dot drift against the constellations, a reminder that the universe is not static, that beyond our sun's gentle pull lie worlds and bodies we may never see again. Atlas, the strange visitor, had arrived, and its story was only beginning to unfold. When astronomers first confirmed that 3i Atlas was on a hyperbolic path, the realization settled in slowly, almost like the dim light of dawn. This was not simply another comet circling the sun, returning faithfully after centuries or millennia. No, its course was a one-way passage. From the outer dark it had come, and into the outer dark it would go again, never repeating its journey. That knowledge brings with it a particular kind of stillness. For in astronomy, time is everything. The planets keep their steady rhythm. The moon returns month after month. Even the comets we know, with their glowing tails, are familiar enough, returning once a century or once in many thousands of years. But Atlas, once it has gone, it will be gone for good. To witness it is to stand at the shoreline, watching a ship pass only once across the horizon, never to appear again. But before it would leave us, Atlas revealed itself in ways that drew both wonder and unease. Its sheer scale was the first surprise. Many interstellar bodies are small, fragments scattered from other stars' violent beginnings. Yet this one was immense. Measurements placed its diameter at nearly 5.6 kilometers. Imagine standing in the center of a city and walking outward, block after block, neighborhood after neighborhood, until you have crossed the span of an entire ring road around a metropolis. That is how wide this single object is, and its weight, perhaps the most unsettling fact of all. Calculations suggested a mass exceeding 33 billion tons. Numbers so large begin to lose their texture, but comparisons help. It is the weight of 300 Mount Everests gliding silently through space, a mountain that moves, a frozen monument older than our sun itself slipping past us without sound. Yet even as it released great plumes of gas into space, jets of carbon dioxide and water vapour that spread into vast clouds around it, its trajectory hardly shifted. For most comets, this outgassing behaves like the thrust of a tiny engine, pushing them slightly off course. Astronomers even give this a name: non-gravitational acceleration. It is expected, predictable, measurable, but Atlas seemed to ignore the physics that rule every other comet. Picture a breeze against a feather, the feather moves easily, but picture the same breeze against a truck, and the truck barely notices. Atlas was that truck, indifferent to forces that would have nudged lesser bodies aside. Each day, its path deviated by less than 15 meters, a distance smaller than many of us walk in a single breath. For a comet visibly venting material into space, this was astonishing. The conclusion was inescapable. Atlas was far heavier, far more massive than any interstellar visitor we had imagined. Theories had suggested we would first encounter fragments no bigger than pebbles, scraps left over from distant planets forming. Instead, we found ourselves staring at a giant, a body both active and unyielding, as though the universe had chosen to show us not its crumbs but its stones. And here, a soft question arises, one that lingers in the quiet. Were our expectations wrong? Or is this comet an exception, a rare mountain drifting across the interstellar sea? Perhaps our telescopes, limited as they are, have simply missed the countless smaller fragments, too faint to see. Or perhaps the cosmos is more surprising than we dared to imagine, filled not only with dust but with wandering giants. In this way, Atlas already reshaped our understanding. Not because it was easy to explain, but because it refused to fit neatly into what we thought we knew. Science, in its calmest form, thrives in these spaces, in the gaps between certainty, in the moments when an object's very existence poses a riddle. And so astronomers continued to watch, waiting for the comet to tell them more. As the weeks passed, astronomers did what they always do when faced with mystery. They turned their instruments toward the light, for light is the language of the universe. Across the vast emptiness, nothing travels more faithfully than the subtle colours of a star, the faint reflection from a comet's icy surface, the delicate spectrum hidden in a beam that has crossed millions of kilometres to reach us. To understand Atlas, they asked, what is it made of? What secrets rest in its frozen heart? The James Webb Space Telescope, orbiting far from Earth's atmosphere, offered the clearest answers. With its sensitive spectrometers, it could spread the comet's light into a rainbow, each tiny line within that rainbow whispering the presence of a different element or molecule. And there, in the spectrum, anomalies emerged. Carbon dioxide, the silent breath of distant ice, was unusually strong. In most comets within our solar system, CO2 is present but modest, often only 5 to 10% of the vapour released. Atlas, however, carried more than twice this share. More than 20% of its outgassing was carbon dioxide. To put that into perspective, imagine a recipe. Solar system comets follow a certain pattern of ingredients, mostly water ice, with smaller measures of carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, and other gases. But Atlas seemed to have written its recipe differently, as though it came from a kitchen far colder, far more distant than the one that baked our own solar neighbourhood. This told astronomers something profound. Atlas was likely born in a region even colder than the Kuiper Belt, the icy ring that circles the Sun beyond Neptune. In those remote frozen cradles, temperatures fall low enough that carbon dioxide itself can solidify, remaining trapped for billions of years until warmed by the faintest brush of starlight. Yet another surprise appeared. Atlas began venting its gases not when it was close to the Sun, but while still far away, even beyond the orbit of Jupiter. Normally, a comet remains quiet until it comes within about 200 million kilometers of the Sun, when water ice begins to sublimate. But Atlas was already active 500 million kilometers out, as though it were unusually eager to release its breath. Some scientists compared it to a kettle beginning to steam, while still resting in the cold. The picture grew stranger still when astronomers studied the light it reflected. The polarization, the direction in which light waves oscillate, did not match what was expected. It hinted that the dust grains surrounding Atlas were shaped or arranged in unusual ways, unlike the dust we have seen from local comets. Such clues, though subtle, spoke of a surface chemistry unfamiliar to our solar system. And then there was the question of metals. Early readings hinted at nickel, but no sign of iron. On Earth, and in nearly every meteorite found within our solar system, nickel and iron walk together, bound by natural processes of planetary formation. To see one without the other was puzzling. Perhaps it was a trick of the instruments, dust obscuring signals, or perhaps, in the depths of another star system, different rules had once applied. In the quiet patience of observation, scientists knew not to leap ahead. Each anomaly was a piece of a puzzle still unfolding. Perhaps carbon dioxide abundance could be explained by its birthplace. Perhaps the strange polarization was only a quirk of measurement, and perhaps nickel without iron was a temporary illusion. Yet even with caution, one truth was clear. Atlas was not like the comets we knew. And that realization carried with it a sense of gentle awe. To find, among the endless stars, an object whose chemistry seemed to sing in a different key. This was to glimpse the diversity of worlds far beyond our reach. We could not travel to those systems. We could not walk their frozen plains or witness their suns. But here, passing by us in silence, was a messenger carrying the signature of its home. And so astronomers waited eagerly for the next opportunity, October 3rd, when Atlas would pass near Mars. For there, a watchful satellite was ready to look closer than ever before. October approached, and with it, a quiet anticipation. For while observatories on Earth strained their lenses, a more privileged vantage point awaited. High above the red deserts of Mars, circling in patient silence, the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter had been preparing. Since 2006, it had watched that planet with careful eyes, mapping canyons, dunes, and even boulders the size of houses. But now, for the first time, its instruments would be turned outward, away from the Martian surface, to capture a passing wanderer. Astronomers predicted that Atlas would sweep past Mars at a distance of just a quarter of an astronomical unit, a span still vast, but close enough that the orbiter's camera, called HiRISE, could resolve details far finer than anything from Earth. HiRISE, capable of photographing rocks on Mars as small as 1 meter across, offered a chance to see Atlas not as a distant blur, but as a world of its own. The goals were twofold, simple yet profound. First, to measure its size with greater certainty. Until then, the 5.6 kilometer figure was an estimate, inferred from brightness and reflection. With direct images, scientists could test that number and perhaps glimpse the very vents where gas streamed into space. Second, to refine its chemistry. The orbiter's spectrometers could dissect the sunlight bouncing off Atlas, teasing apart the exact balance of water vapor, carbon dioxide, and other substances. If the puzzling hints of nickel without iron were true, this might be the chance to confirm them. And yet, as with so much in astronomy, opportunity came wrapped in limits. By late October, just weeks after its close pass, Atlas would slip behind the Sun from Earth's perspective, hidden in the glare of our star. For 2 long months, from late October until December, it would be invisible, lost in brightness. Such windows of absence remind us how fragile these moments of discovery are. A comet may be vast, but seen from Earth, it is as dependent on geometry and timing as a thin thread glimpsed in sunlight. Still, there was comfort in knowing that the comet would emerge again. When December came, Atlas would return to view, farther from the Sun but still releasing its ghostly breath into space. Scientists hoped to see whether its tail had shifted, twisted, or thinned, shaped by solar winds, sculpted by invisible storms. In that reappearance lay the promise of fresh knowledge, another chance to listen to what this visitor had to say. The weeks before its disappearance became a race to gather as much as possible. Every night of observation, every spectrum captured was like a note in a symphony played only once. Soon the music would be silent, and all that remained would be memory and anticipation. And as humanity waited, another layer of curiosity stirred. The Sun itself, restless in its cycles, had recently launched a great plume of plasma outward, an eruption called a coronal mass ejection. Such storms had been known to break comet tails before, snapping them like fragile ribbons. Would Atlas suffer the same fate? Would its delicate veil of gas and dust be torn only to grow back again? No one could say for certain. And perhaps that is what gave this visitor such a quiet grip on imagination. It was not simply its path, or its weight, or its chemistry. It was the way it kept placing questions before us, one after another, each one patient, each one waiting for us to wonder. When we speak of comets, we often imagine their beauty, a faint star that blossoms into a sweeping tail, stretched across the night sky. But behind that beauty lies fragility. Comets are ancient, yes, but they are also delicate. Their surfaces crack, their tails can be torn, their cores split apart by the gravity of planets or the winds of the Sun. They are in many ways the most vulnerable bodies that wander the solar system. Astronomers remembered this as they considered the fate of Atlas under the touch of solar storms. In 2007, the comet Encke had passed through such an eruption. The Sun had flung billions of tons of plasma into space, and Encke, caught in the torrent, had its tail severed. For a time it drifted as a head without a train, its glowing veil cut away like smoke scattered by a storm. Yet in the weeks that followed, Encke's tail regrew as the comet continued to vent gas and dust. What would happen to Atlas if struck by the same violence? Would its tail be torn? Would the gas it released scatter into disorder? The thought was not one of fear, but of curiosity. For in such events science listens more closely. A tail broken and reformed could reveal the density of the dust, the weight of the gas, even the hidden structure of the nucleus itself. Sometimes it is in loss, in disruption, that the deepest secrets are uncovered. This was not the only question. Atlas carried with it the riddle of size. It was far larger than what models had predicted for an interstellar visitor. For years, scientists believed that the first messengers from other stars we would meet would be small, fragments of ice and stone, perhaps no bigger than mountains, thrown into space during the violent births of distant planets. Yet here was something massive, a body whose scale belonged not to debris, but to a world in its own right. The models had said otherwise, but the sky does not bend to models. Was this comet an exception, a rare colossus drifting through the void? Or had our telescopes, even with their growing power, failed to see the multitude of smaller fragments, too faint to capture in their gaze? If Atlas were common, then perhaps interstellar space was not filled with dust but with giants. Such thoughts touched upon deeper questions. How do stars, in their youth, scatter such immense bodies into the darkness? What forces eject them? In our own solar system, Jupiter is thought to have played this role, flinging comets outward with its great gravity. Perhaps in other systems, other planets, larger and stranger than our own, had cast out objects like Atlas, sending them drifting across the galaxy. It is in these quiet speculations that astronomy meets philosophy, not the heavy philosophy of books and arguments, but the soft, meditative wondering of the night sky. We look upward and ask, how many of these travellers are there? How many have already passed us unseen? And how many will we notice in years to come? The answers will arrive slowly, patiently, as they always do. In the near future, the Vera Rubin Observatory in Chile will open its eyes to the heavens. With its immense field of view, it will scan the sky again and again, every night, capturing changes as subtle as a star that shifts by a fraction. In its first year, it may find thousands of asteroids, countless comets, and, if fortune is kind, perhaps a handful of new interstellar visitors. If more giants like Atlas appear, then we will know this one is not alone. If none arrive, then perhaps it truly is unique, a solitary messenger from a place we cannot yet imagine. Either way, the lesson will be the same. The cosmos is not what we thought, and discovery is never complete. And so, as Atlas prepared to vanish behind the sun, humanity found itself waiting, not with impatience, but with a quiet readiness. For the universe reveals itself in fragments, a glimpse now, a glimpse later, always enough to remind us that we are small and that we have much still to learn. By the time Atlas began to slip behind the sun, astronomers already knew they were watching something extraordinary. The data gathered before its disappearance had raised as many questions as it answered. Yet this too is part of the rhythm of astronomy. The cosmos seldom speaks in complete sentences. Instead, it offers fragments, clues scattered like pieces of a puzzle that may take decades to arrange. Still, what had been seen was enough to shift understanding. To think that a comet, so massive and yet so active, could wander between the stars was humbling. In its nucleus lay not only water and dust, but the frozen history of another system entirely. Perhaps it had circled another star long ago. Perhaps it had once belonged to a planetary nursery, cast away during the violent youth of distant worlds. Whatever its origin, it now carried that story silently, wrapped in layers of ice and time. One detail continued to echo in the minds of researchers, its abundance of carbon dioxide. Unlike water ice, which sublimates only when close to the sun, carbon dioxide can release vapour even at greater distances. This explained why Atlas had become active so early, already venting gas beyond the orbit of Jupiter. But it also suggested something more, that its birthplace was unimaginably cold, colder even than the outermost reaches of our own solar system. If our comets are the children of the Kuiper Belt, then Atlas was a child of something farther still, a region so frigid that its chemistry followed rules unfamiliar to us. In that chemistry, some glimpsed a greater significance. Comets have long been suspected as couriers of life's ingredients. On Earth, we know that amino acids, ethanol, and other organic molecules have been detected in cometary dust. If Atlas carried such substances, it meant that the seeds of life are not confined to one system, but may drift endlessly through the galaxy, carried on frozen bodies ejected from one cradle to another. Life, in this vision, is not merely local, but cosmic, scattered like pollen on the wind of stars. And then there was the comet's age. Atlas may have been 7 billion years old, older than our sun itself. Consider that for a moment. While our solar system was still gathering its first stones and gases, while the Earth was still unformed, Atlas may already have existed. It drifted across epochs we cannot measure with human imagination. The rise and fall of stars, the collapse of clusters, the shifting of galactic arms, all of these may have passed around it while it remained unchanged, a frozen witness to eras beyond count. Now, at last, it passed close enough for us to see it, to measure its breadth and weigh its silence. It was as though a traveller had stepped briefly into our village, carrying with them memories from places we will never walk. For a short time, we could watch, listen, and learn. Then, just as quietly they would leave, continuing down a road that stretched beyond the horizon. This perspective brought with it not sadness, but serenity. Astronomy is not about possession. We do not hold the stars, nor the comets, nor the galaxies. We glimpse them. And in those glimpses we find meaning. Atlas was one such glimpse, brief, perhaps never to be repeated, but enough to remind us that the universe is larger, stranger, and older than we can truly grasp. And in December, when it would reappear from behind the sun, astronomers would be waiting again, ready to gather the next fragments of its story. December arrived, and with it came the quiet return of Atlas from behind the glare of the sun. For weeks it had been invisible to our eyes and instruments, hidden in the brightness of daylight. Astronomers describe this period as solar conjunction, a time when objects pass behind the sun and vanish from view. There is always a silence in these absences, as if the universe itself has paused. But silence in astronomy is never empty. It is simply waiting. When the comet emerged again, it was changed. Not dramatically, not in ways obvious to the casual gaze, but subtly. Its tail stretched differently, its coma fainter or shifted by winds that cannot be felt but only measured. Scientists studied the renewed shape carefully. They searched for signs of the solar storm that had erupted weeks earlier, a storm of plasma and magnetic fields launched outward from the sun's surface. Comet tails are fragile things. A solar wind strong enough can twist them, bend them, even break them completely. The comet Encke had taught this lesson years ago, its tail sliced apart and then regrown. Atlas offered another chance to witness this dance between star and wanderer. Did the tail remain intact? Did it shimmer with new dust? Or had it been stripped into something thinner, more transparent? From such changes, astronomers hope to learn more than just shape. A disrupted tail reveals density, the balance between dust and gas, the structure of the material within. By watching how solar winds shaped Atlas, they could infer details that even the sharpest telescope could not capture directly. In these small transformations lay the keys to mass, to density, to hidden interiors. For the casual observer, these details may seem almost too delicate to matter. A few degrees of shift in a faint ribbon of gas, the loss or regrowth of a tail, are these not trivial? Yet, in astronomy, even the faintest lines on a graph, the slightest change in light, can hold entire histories. The universe speaks quietly, and its truths are often buried in whispers. As December stretched onward, the comet remained under steady watch. The Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter's images were compared with new ground-based measurements. Spectra were studied again, to confirm the carbon dioxide excess, to test once more the question of nickel without iron. The story was not yet whole, but each piece added weight to the mystery. At the same time, humanity looked ahead. The Vera Rubin Observatory was nearing readiness, its vast digital eye prepared to survey half the sky every night. Where once we might discover an interstellar visitor every few years, soon we might find many, perhaps dozens. If Atlas was only one of a hidden multitude, then our understanding of interstellar space was about to change. If it remained unique, then its rarity itself would speak volumes. But for the moment, all eyes stayed with this one comet. It had travelled for billions of years, across interstellar distances that erase entire civilizations, to pass now near our sun and whisper its story. And in that story, we heard echoes of our own beginnings, the chemistry of planets, the seeds of life, the violence of creation. In watching Atlas, we were not only studying another system, we were also studying ourselves, our place in a galaxy where countless such travellers may drift unseen, each carrying the memory of a different star. By now, Atlas had revealed itself as more than a comet. It was a lesson in humility, wrapped in ice and dust. Its scale, its chemistry, and its silence each told us that the universe still holds surprises, even in the simplest of forms. One of the greatest fascinations was its age. 7 billion years. Older than the sun, older than the planets, older than Earth itself. When our solar system was still gathering its clouds of dust, still forming the first stones that would one day become planets, Atlas was already there, drifting in the dark between stars. To think of that span of time is to reach beyond imagination. Civilizations, continents, even mountains on Earth are brief in comparison. Atlas was ancient before the Earth was born, and it will remain long after Earth is gone. Astronomers often describe comets as time capsules. Unlike planets, they are not melted, reshaped, or weathered by atmospheres. They remain as they were at their birth, preserving in their frozen interiors the chemistry of their origin. To touch a comet, even with light, is to touch the past. But with Atlas, the past was not only older than Earth's history, it was a past from another star system altogether. Its gases, its dust, its balance of elements all belong to a place we cannot see, orbiting a sun we may never know. This realization led to another gentle reflection. If comets can wander from one system to another, then the galaxy is a web of exchange. The ingredients of life, water, organic molecules, amino acids, may not remain locked to their birthplaces. They may be carried outward, cast into interstellar space, and eventually find their way to other suns, other planets. It is possible, then, that the seeds of life are not rare treasures kept apart, but drifting currents that spread slowly across the galaxy. On Earth, evidence already suggests this possibility. Comets within our solar system have been found to contain amino acids, ethanol, and other complex molecules. These are not life itself, but they are the letters from which life's story can be written. If Atlas carries the same, then it is proof of a greater truth, that the cosmos shares its building blocks freely, scattering them across star systems like pollen in the wind. And here, a question emerges. If seeds are scattered, how many worlds may have taken root? We cannot know, not yet. But comets like Atlas invite us to consider that Earth may not be singular in its beginnings. Our water, our organics, even the spark of life itself may be part of a wider, older pattern, stretching across the galaxy. For now, the comet passed on, silent and immense, carrying its mysteries with it. We could not land on it, we could not capture it. We could only watch, measure, and wonder. Yet even in that distance, Atlas had already given us a gift, the reminder that the origins of life and the origins of worlds are not bound by one place or one time. They are shared across the stars, drifting patiently through the dark. As Atlas moved farther from the sun, its glow softened, but the questions it raised grew brighter. The world of science thrives on such moments, not on answers neatly tied, but on puzzles that demand patience, and Atlas was nothing if not a puzzle. One of its deepest riddles was weight. A comet so large, so massive, wandering into stellar space seemed improbable. For years, models had suggested otherwise. When stars are born and planets take shape, debris is cast away. But the fragments that escape, according to our theories, should be small, no more than boulders or hills of ice, scattered like cosmic gravel. These were the pieces we expected to see first, tiny travellers slipping through the solar system unnoticed. Yet Atlas was not gravel. It was a mountain. Why? Was our understanding of planetary formation wrong? Were we too narrow in our imagination? Or was this object simply rare, a colossus among countless fragments? The question stretched beyond Atlas itself. If many such giants exist, then interstellar space may be filled with more mass, more ancient bodies than we had ever dared to guess. If, instead, Atlas is an outlier, then perhaps we are witnessing something close to a miracle of timing, a chance alignment that allowed one of the largest of wanderers to pass close enough for us to see. These questions are not just theoretical. They touch upon how we imagine the universe itself, its birth, its growth, its balance. For in every system, in every scattering of debris, there is a story of violence and creation. Large bodies like Atlas suggest that planets may not be the only worlds to survive such storms. Perhaps some are broken apart, flung outward, carrying their weight across the stars. Perhaps in distant systems, ejections are more violent, throwing away not pebbles but mountains. It is humbling to realize how little we know of these dynamics. We see only fragments of the whole, caught by telescopes for a brief time before vanishing into darkness. And yet, even fragments are enough to reshape thought. Atlas showed us that the galaxy may not be gentle, that creation and destruction may echo louder than we imagined, sending witnesses like this comet across the void. For astronomers, this was not discouragement. It was invitation. Already the future Vera Rubin Observatory promised to widen the search, its vast nightly surveys revealing what has long been hidden. Where once we might detect an interstellar visitor once in decades, soon we may see them yearly, perhaps even monthly. Each one different, each one carrying a different memory of another sun. Together, they may tell us whether Atlas was an exception or a clue to a far larger truth. And for those of us simply listening, the lesson was more quiet. The universe is not bound to our expectations. It will show us what it holds, in its own time and in its own way. We need only to watch, to notice, and to allow our understanding to shift. In the stillness of that December sky, Atlas continued its silent journey outward, a messenger whose questions had only just begun to be asked. There is something deeply moving about the way comets carry silence with them. They arrive without fanfare, slip across the sky with faint light, and then disappear again, leaving behind only traces in memory and data. Atlas, though immense, shared that same quiet nature. Even as scientists debated its mysteries, its weight, its chemistry, its improbable journey, it drifted on, indifferent to our wonder. One of the greatest values of Atlas lay in its role as a cosmic archive. Comets are not shaped by seasons, winds, or rain. They do not erode as mountains do, nor do they churn like oceans or atmospheres. Their surfaces may be scarred by sunlight and impacts, but their interiors remain preserved, locked away for billions of years. To study one is to open a time capsule, untouched since the dawn of its system. With Atlas, this capsule came from far beyond our solar system. Its unusual balance of gases, so much carbon dioxide, so little of what we usually expect, was like a dialect from another world, a language written by chemistry unfamiliar to us. It was a reminder that planetary systems are not uniform. The recipe that made our own solar system is only one of countless variations. Somewhere, perhaps around a colder, dimmer star, a different pattern prevailed, and Atlas was born from that pattern. For scientists, this was not just curiosity, it was evidence. Evidence that our galaxy is more diverse than we can see, that every star may host its own version of worlds, and that fragments of those worlds occasionally pass within our reach. Even without travelling across light years, we can still touch through light and observation the echoes of other systems. But Atlas also carried a more intimate question, one that brushed gently against the human imagination. If comets are carriers of organics, amino acids, carbon compounds, the beginnings of chemistry that can lead to life, then what Atlas carried was not just a history of its own system. It might also have carried the potential for life, scattered across the stars. This idea is not new. Scientists have long speculated that comets may have delivered water and organics to the early Earth, seeding the conditions for life's emergence. If true here, why not elsewhere? Could Atlas, billions of years ago, have brushed past another young system, scattering dust rich in the raw ingredients of life onto a waiting planet? Could life, in some distant world, owe its first spark to a comet like this one? We cannot know. Yet the question lingers, soft but powerful. Life on Earth feels precious, unique, fragile. But comets suggest that life's beginnings may not be locked to a single place. Perhaps they are carried everywhere, waiting only for the right conditions to grow. And so, as Atlas glided outward, it left us with more than data. It left us with a reminder of connection, that across the galaxy, matter and possibility flow together, shared from one system to another, scattered like seeds across a cosmic field. By early 2026, Atlas was already moving farther from the Sun, its light dimming with each passing week. Yet the trail of questions it left behind glowed brighter than ever. Every telescope that had watched it, every spectrum recorded, had contributed to a larger picture, though that picture was still unfinished, like a painting with entire sections left blank. One of the clearest lessons was this: interstellar visitors are not hypothetical anymore. They are real, and they are more diverse than we expected. Oumuamua had been small, elongated, and strangely silent, with no tail at all. Borisov had been more familiar, a comet whose chemistry resembled those born in our solar system. Atlas, however, defied both patterns. Heavy beyond expectation, active at unusual distances, filled with carbon dioxide, it was a reminder that we had seen only a fraction of what the galaxy has to offer. This led astronomers back to their models. If interstellar space holds such giants, then perhaps our theories of planetary formation must bend. Imagine a young star surrounded by a swirling disk of gas and dust. Within that disk, planets begin to grow, pulling material into spheres and giants. But in this process, chaos rules. Planets collide, fragments scatter, and gravity slings bodies outward. Most debris is thought to be small, like grains cast aside by a sculptor. But perhaps, in some systems, entire mountains are thrown away, giants like Atlas, launched into interstellar exile. The possibility reshaped how we think about stellar neighbourhoods. If one system can cast out such a body, others likely can too, and if they drift long enough, across billions of years, then interstellar space is not empty at all. It is filled with hidden travellers, faint and cold, awaiting discovery. For humanity, this is both comforting and humbling. Comforting, because it suggests we are not alone in our chemical beginnings. Humbling, because it reminds us how small our reach remains. We have discovered only 3 interstellar objects so far. How many have passed us unseen, moving silently through the black? How many carry chemistry we cannot yet imagine? Here, another gentle reflection arises. Discovery often comes down to timing. Oumuamua slipped past too quickly for us to learn its secrets. Borisov granted us more, but still only briefly. Atlas lingered longer, bright enough for months of study, yet even so its story feels incomplete. To know more, we must wait for the next visitor and the next after that. The coming years may be generous. With new observatories rising, like Vera Rubin in Chile, our sky will be watched with unprecedented sensitivity. The faintest points of motion will no longer pass unnoticed. When the next interstellar body arrives, we may be ready to meet it not as strangers but as students, prepared to listen carefully to whatever it brings, and when that day comes, Atlas will be remembered as the one that taught us to expect the unexpected. Not a fragment, but a giant. Not silent, but strangely alive. A visitor that carried with it not answers, but questions, and in those questions the promise of deeper understanding. The more astronomers reflected on Atlas, the more they saw it not only as an object of study, but as a reminder of perspective. We often think of our solar system as the centre of our experience, a stage where the sun, planets, and moons perform their predictable motions. Yet Atlas whispered that we are not alone on this stage. Beyond our familiar circle of worlds, countless others exist, hidden, distant, unknown. Every detail of this comet seemed to carry that reminder. Its weight, immense beyond what theories had suggested, told us that interstellar space may not be a graveyard of dust and fragments, but a passageway for titans. Its chemistry, rich in carbon dioxide, suggested that planetary nurseries elsewhere follow recipes we have never tasted before. Its resilience against outgassing showed that not all comets are fragile wanderers. Some carry the heft of worlds unmade. And then there was the deeper mystery, the possibility of organics, of a life's building blocks. If such molecules can survive the violence of ejection, the cold of interstellar space, and the heat of passing suns, then they can travel, they can scatter, they can land upon young worlds in need of beginnings. In this way, comets like Atlas may act as couriers of possibility, carrying sparks from one cosmic cradle to another. This is not just imagination. Already in the dust of solar system comets, scientists have found amino acids. the very molecules that assemble into proteins, they have found ethanol, formaldehyde, even sugars. These are the tools with which life writes itself. To think that Atlas, ancient and interstellar, may hold such chemistry is to consider life not as an isolated miracle, but as a pattern spread across the galaxy. It is a gentle thought, almost soothing, that we are part of something larger, something ongoing, that life, fragile as it feels, may not be rare but common, woven into the universe itself. And yet science asks us to be patient. We cannot yet reach Atlas. We cannot scoop its dust or sample its ice. All we have are spectra, faint signals in the light, interpreted with care. But even those signals tell us enough to dream carefully, to imagine responsibly. Science is not certainty. It is a narrowing of possibilities, a steady approach toward truth. Atlas is not an alien ship, nor is it magic. It is simply unusual, a comet. But not like any comet we have seen before. And perhaps that is its greatest gift, the reminder that the unknown need not be impossible to value. We do not need answers to be amazed. We do not need certainty to feel wonder. Atlas, in all its strangeness, invites us to accept mystery as part of the journey. So the comet continued outward, leaving the sun behind, moving once more toward the endless dark. Its time near us was short, but it was enough. Enough to show us that the universe is wider, stranger, and more connected than we knew. Enough to remind us that discovery is never finished. As Atlas receded farther from the sun, its glow diminished, its tail thinned, and soon it would become invisible to the naked eye, lost in the quiet blackness. Yet its presence remained alive in the minds of those who had followed it, for what it carried was not simply dust and ice, but a shift in perspective. For centuries, comets were seen by human eyes as omens, warnings in the sky, unpredictable messengers of change. Ancient chronicles are filled with accounts of people gazing upward in fear when a new streak of light appeared. Kings interpreted them as signs of downfall, farmers as signals of famine, armies as symbols of war. The science of today has dispelled the superstition, but the sense of awe remains. And Atlas, with its immense mass and unfamiliar chemistry, rekindled that ancient wonder, not as fear, but as quiet astonishment. It reminded us that our solar system is not closed, not isolated. The walls we imagine between our sun and the rest of the galaxy are not impermeable. Across the eons, fragments from other stars find their way in, crossing our paths for brief moments. Each one carries the fingerprints of distant places, different recipes of ice, dust, and gas shaped by suns we cannot see. To watch Atlas was to realize that we are part of a greater whole, a galaxy alive with exchange. This truth changes how we think about beginnings. Earth was not born in isolation. Its water, its carbon, even its life may have come from afar, carried by comets that once fell to its surface. If Atlas carries organics, then so too might countless others, spreading the raw materials of life from star to star. Life may not be an accident confined to one world, but a story told across the galaxy, chapter by chapter, comet by comet. For astronomers, Atlas was not only a scientific puzzle, but a glimpse of possibility. What if, one day, we could send probes fast enough to intercept such visitors? To study them up close, to drill into their cores, to taste the chemistry of another star system directly. Missions like these remain dreams, limited by technology and distance. But each interstellar visitor fuels those dreams, making them more real, more urgent. Until then, all we can do is watch, with patience. The Vera Rubin Observatory will soon sweep the skies with unmatched depth, likely finding more wanderers in the years ahead. Each will be different, each carrying its own mysteries. Some may be small, others vast. Some may resemble the comets we know, others may defy comparison. Together they will teach us the diversity of worlds beyond our sun. And so, as Atlas drifted away, what lingered was not loss, but gratitude. Gratitude for the chance to witness it, to measure its path, to glimpse its chemistry. Gratitude for the reminder that the cosmos is not quiet background, but a living stage, where even in the vast distances between stars there is movement, exchange, and connection. Atlas was leaving us, but it left behind something permanent. The awareness that we are not as isolated as we once believed. The universe is not only around us, it is within us, and it reaches us in ways we are only beginning to understand. By the time Atlas had travelled beyond the reach of most telescopes, it had already given us more than many comets ever could. It had not been caught by a spacecraft nor sampled by a probe, and yet in its brief passage it altered the way we think about interstellar space itself. For astronomers, the puzzle of Atlas was not simply in its numbers, its weight, its size, its chemistry. It was in what those numbers implied. 33 billion tons carried across light years meant that the processes shaping planetary systems must be more powerful, more chaotic than we had believed. A comet of such scale does not leave its home gently. It must have been hurled outward, perhaps by a giant planet's gravity, perhaps by a collision, perhaps by a chain of resonances we cannot yet imagine. Somewhere long ago an event of extraordinary violence occurred, and Atlas was flung into the dark to wander alone for billions of years. To picture this is to glimpse the larger cycles of the galaxy. Stars form, planets grow, systems collide, fragments are thrown outward, and some, just a few, cross the void to arrive here, briefly touching our sun's warmth before departing again. Each visitor is a witness to its home, carrying chemistry and history across unimaginable distances. And there is something poetic in that image, though we speak of it quietly. For in a way, Atlas was a messenger not just of science, but of connection. Its very existence tied us to another place, to another star, to another story unfolding far away. We may never know which star it once circled, or which planets it brushed past, but we know this. The universe is not separate stories, but one long narrative, threads weaving between systems through bodies like this. The importance of studying such visitors lies not only in their rarity, but in what they tell us about possibility. If planets elsewhere can eject such giants, then their systems must be rich and complex. If comets can preserve organic molecules and scatter them across space, then the seeds of life may not belong to one world, but to many. The building blocks of biology could be travelling now, frozen in dust, waiting to fall on the right planet in the right time. Even now, when Atlas is too far to see clearly, it continues to teach by its absence. Its brief presence trained astronomers to recognize what is possible. It sharpened models, inspired questions, and prepared us for the next discovery. Science often grows not from answers, but from the patience to hold a question for years, even decades. Atlas gave us such a question and left us listening. For those who simply gaze at the night sky, the lesson is softer. The universe is not still. It is full of movement, of visitors and departures, of journeys too vast to track. Every comet, every faint streak of light, is a reminder that even in the stillest nights, there are wanderers passing by, carrying stories we may never fully hear. And perhaps that is enough, for in their silence they remind us to keep looking, to keep listening, and to accept that wonder is not diminished by mystery. Atlas, now gone, will not return. But the memory of its passing and the questions it left will linger. As the months passed and Atlas grew fainter, its legacy became clearer. In many ways, it was less about what we discovered and more about what it revealed we did not yet understand. The universe, patient and immense, had offered us a visitor. And in that visitor, it had reminded us that our theories, however careful, are only temporary maps of a far larger terrain. Think of how it began. A faint point of light detected in July of 2025 by a telescope in Chile. Nothing about it seemed extraordinary at first, yet with each new observation, the story deepened. Its orbit, hyperbolic, unbound. Its size, greater than any interstellar body yet seen. Its mass, so immense that its jets of gas, visible and powerful, barely shifted its course. Its chemistry, rich in carbon dioxide, unlike anything we had measured before. Piece by piece, Atlas became not simply a comet, but a challenge. And this is the rhythm of science. We expect answers, but what we receive are better questions. Questions that refine our tools, sharpen our gaze, and teach us how to look differently. Atlas asked, are there more giants adrift between the stars? Do stellar nurseries scatter worlds of every size, not only fragments? Are the building blocks of life drifting freely across the galaxy, waiting for planets to catch them? None of these questions were answered completely, but each one nudged us forward, preparing us for what may come next. In that sense, Atlas was a teacher, reminding us that discovery is not a single moment but a process, stretched across years, sometimes lifetimes. And beyond science, it offered something gentler still. For those who stood under the night sky and knew of its passing, it was a reminder that we are part of a larger story. Our Earth, our Sun, our familiar planets are not alone. Across the vastness, other stars shed their fragments, other worlds cast away their dust, and sometimes, through quiet chance, one of those fragments finds its way here. In that exchange lies connection. We are not sealed within our solar system. We are woven into a galaxy where matter flows, where stories cross, where even a comet can bridge unimaginable distances. Atlas was one such bridge, a frozen traveller carrying a history older than our sun, a history it will continue to carry long after it has left us behind. Now it drifts outward, fading into the deep. We may not see it again. Future generations may not even remember its name, but the questions it raised will endure, shaping how we look at the sky, how we build our instruments, how we imagine our place in the universe. And perhaps, as you listen to this story beneath the stillness of your own night, you might feel a quiet kinship with that traveller. For like Atlas, we too are wanderers, briefly present, moving through time, carrying fragments of stories older than ourselves. In the end, the comet's greatest gift may not be data or theory, but the simple reminder to stay curious, to keep watching the sky, to keep asking questions even when answers are far away. For in the act of wondering, we are already part of something vast. Atlas has gone, but its lesson remains. Even as Atlas drifted outward into the cold, it remained with us in thought. Its orbit was now carrying it farther from the warmth of the sun, into regions where sunlight is weak, where the faint glow of its gases would slowly fade until it became invisible. In time, it would vanish completely from our sight, continuing its endless journey into the dark. But the story it left behind would not vanish. Astronomers gathered their observations into careful studies, spectral charts, orbital diagrams, models of mass and density. These would be pored over for years, revisited whenever a new interstellar visitor appeared. For Atlas was not just a comet, it was a reference point, a benchmark against which future discoveries would be measured. Its anomalies, its weight, its chemistry, its stubborn orbit were no longer just curiosities. They were clues, hints of the wider population of wanderers moving unseen between the stars. And so, in classrooms and observatories, Atlas became part of a larger conversation. Students learned not only its numbers but its uncertainties. Scientists debated whether its unusual chemistry reflected its birthplace, or whether it was shaped by its long passage through space. Some asked whether it had once circled a distant star, only to be cast away by a giant planet's pull. Others wondered if it was a fragment of a larger body, perhaps even a world shattered in its youth. In this way, Atlas became more than an object. It became a mirror for our curiosity. It reminded us that science is not about perfect knowledge, but about approaching the unknown with patience. Every comet, every star, every faint light on a telescope screen is a doorway to a question, and sometimes the questions matter more than the answers. Beyond the world of science, Atlas touched something more human as well. News of its passage reached millions, sparking fascination not only among astronomers, but among ordinary people gazing up at the night sky. Some wondered if such a visitor might carry life's ingredients, drifting like seeds through the galaxy. Others felt awe at the idea that something older than the Earth itself had passed so close. For a brief moment, Atlas reminded humanity that the universe is not distant. It is present, active, and connected to us. It is strange to think how easily such a story might have been missed. Without the vigilance of telescopes, without the patience of observers, Atlas would have remained invisible, just another silent traveller slipping past us in the night. But we did see it, we did notice, and in noticing, we gained not only knowledge, but perspective. And so, even as it vanished from view, Atlas continued to speak, not in words, but in the questions it left behind, the sense of wonder it stirred, and the quiet reminder that we are part of a universe that is always in motion, always full of stories waiting to be told. Long after Atlas had disappeared from the reach of most telescopes, its journey continued in silence. It no longer left a visible tail. Its gases no longer glowed in the sunlight. It was once again only what it had been for billions of years, a dark, frozen traveller, drifting alone between the stars. But for us, here on Earth, the echoes of its passage remained alive. Astronomers had gathered a wealth of data, images, spectra, orbital tracks, and those records became part of a greater archive, one that will guide science for decades to come. Atlas was not just another comet added to a list. It became a milestone, a marker that changed how we think about interstellar space. It was, after all, only the third confirmed interstellar visitor. The first, Oumuamua, left us puzzled with its strange shape and lack of tail. The second, Borisov, behaved more like the comets we already knew. And then came Atlas, a giant unlike either of them, massive, active, and filled with an unusual balance of gases. 3 visitors, 3 different stories. Already this small collection was enough to show that interstellar objects are diverse beyond expectation. For scientists, this realization is both exciting and sobering. Exciting, because it means the universe is richer than our models imagined. Sobering, because it means our understanding is still so young. To build a full picture, we must wait for dozens, perhaps hundreds of such visitors. Each one will carry its own details, its own anomalies, its own small piece of the galaxy's story. And here lies a gentle truth. Astronomy is a science of patience. The objects we study do not appear on command. They arrive in their own time, and they stay only briefly. We cannot summon a comet from another star. We can only prepare, watch, and hope to be ready when the next one comes. Atlas taught us that lesson well. For those beyond the scientific community, its story carried another kind of meaning. To know that a body older than the Sun, formed in another system entirely, passed near us, it stirred a quiet wonder. Some imagined what it would be like to stand upon it, to look outward from a surface that had never known sunlight until now. Others reflected on the possibility that life's ingredients may be carried in such bodies, drifting endlessly until they find a planet like Earth. These thoughts are not proof, but they are possibilities, and possibilities have always been part of humanity's relationship with the sky. We may not know whether comets have seeded life across the stars, but we do know that they carry the chemistry of beginnings. And that knowledge alone is enough to remind us that life's story may be far larger than our own world. Atlas will not return. Its hyperbolic path ensures that it will continue outward forever, into the dark, past the reach of our telescopes, past the edge of memory. But for the short time it was with us, it gave us what every great discovery gives: perspective, a reminder of scale, a sense of connection, and an invitation to wonder. Now, as Atlas continues its lonely voyage into the interstellar dark, we are left to reflect on what such an encounter truly means. It's easy to speak of numbers, of billions of tons, of kilometers, of orbits shaped by gravity. But behind those numbers lies something quieter, almost meditative, the awareness that our solar system is not an island. We are part of a greater sea, and across that sea, travellers sometimes drift into our view. Consider the span of its journey. 7 billion years of silence, carrying chemistry untouched by any sun until now. It wandered through regions of the galaxy where stars were born and died, where clusters dissolved, where the spiral arms of the Milky Way shifted their positions. It moved without haste, never bound to any one world, until chance brought it near ours, and for a moment, just a moment measured against eternity, we were able to notice. There is humility in that realization. We, a young species on a small planet, were given the chance to study something older than ourselves, something formed long before Earth even existed, and though we could not capture it, though we could not drill into its core or ride along its orbit, we still learned from it. Through light and patience, we touched a history billions of years in the making. It also speaks to the future of exploration. Today, we can only watch these visitors pass, but perhaps one day, with spacecraft faster than any we have now, we may intercept them. Imagine a probe meeting such a body in deep space, sending back images not blurred by distance but sharp, clear, detailed. Imagine scooping a fragment of dust from a comet that came from another star, holding in our hands the material of a world we will never reach. This dream is not impossible. It may not come in our lifetimes, but science has a way of turning dreams into plans, and plans into reality. Until then, we wait. And waiting is not passive. It is preparation. With instruments like the Vera Rubin Observatory soon to begin its surveys, the number of known interstellar visitors may grow. Each one will arrive unexpectedly, as Atlas did, but each one will leave us a little less uncertain. Slowly, patiently, we will build a mosaic of understanding, each visitor adding another tile. But there is also beauty in the waiting itself. For what Atlas reminds us is that discovery is not only about reaching conclusions, it is also about learning to live with mystery, to hold questions gently in our minds without rushing to close them. Sometimes the most meaningful part of science is not the answer, but the wonder that comes from realizing how much we do not yet know. And so Atlas continues outward, invisible now, leaving behind not fear or spectacle, but calm astonishment. We may never see it again, but we carry the gift of its passing, the quiet reminder that the universe is always larger than our imaginations, and always generous enough to show us glimpses of its depth. In the years ahead, Atlas will travel beyond the edge of our observations. Its path will carry it away from the Sun, out past the orbits of the outer planets, into regions where the stars themselves begin to look different. It will fade into the black, a fragment of another world slipping back into the silence from which it came. But its legacy here will remain. Scientists will return to its data again and again, measuring, recalculating, refining models. Each anomaly it revealed will serve as a reminder of how little we truly know about interstellar wanderers. Was Atlas a rare exception, or is it the first of many giants? Did its chemistry represent the rule of its system, or a singular quirk? For now, the answers are uncertain. Yet in that uncertainty lies the very essence of science, the willingness to remain curious, to search without guarantee. And perhaps this is why Atlas resonates beyond astronomy. For us as humans, its story is not only about data points or orbital curves, it is about perspective. It is about learning to look outward and remember how small we are, and yet how fortunate to witness. In our brief span of time, the passing of something so ancient, so immense. Imagine it now, drifting beyond the orbit of Neptune, the sun already dim behind it, no longer a warm star but a bright point among countless others. Around it, darkness stretches without end. There are no boundaries, no borders, only the vast, gentle silence of the galaxy. Atlas belongs to that silence, as it always has. But for a short while, it belonged to us too. We saw it. We measured it. We wondered about it. And in doing so, we connected not only to another star system, but to the greater pattern of existence, of stars forming, worlds colliding, fragments scattering, life perhaps beginning anew on distant shores. Atlas was not ours to keep, but it was ours to notice, and sometimes noticing is enough. In the quiet rhythm of the universe, moments like these remind us that discovery is not just about what we find, but about how we choose to see. The night sky is full of wanderers, most pass unseen. But every now and then one drifts close enough to catch the light of our awareness. Atlas was such a wanderer, and though it has left us, it leaves behind a trail not of dust, but of wonder. As Atlas vanishes into the depths of interstellar space, its role in our story becomes clear. It was a reminder, both scientific and human, of how brief and precious encounters with the cosmos can be. We may never see it again, but we live in a time where such events can be recorded, shared, and understood, something that generations before us could only dream of. For astronomers, Atlas will remain a case study for decades. Its sheer mass challenged our expectations. Its chemistry, rich in carbon dioxide, forced us to imagine planetary nurseries colder than our own. Its persistence against outgassing puzzled us, reminding us that even the simplest forces can behave differently under unfamiliar conditions. Each of these details will ripple through scientific papers, lectures, and models, slowly reshaping the framework through which we understand interstellar visitors. For dreamers, poets, and those who simply look up at the stars, Atlas was something else entirely. It was a symbol of connection across unimaginable distances. It was proof that the universe is not silent background, but a place alive with movement, with exchanges between stars and systems. To know that dust from another sun passed near us, even if we could not touch it, was enough to stir a sense of belonging to something vast. And there is another quiet lesson here, that discovery comes when we are ready to notice. Atlas could have passed centuries ago, unseen, unrecorded. The universe did not change. Our ability to perceive it did. Telescopes, satellites, instruments, all of them sharpened our vision, allowing us to recognize what would otherwise have been no more than a faint spark in the sky. In that sense, Atlas was not only a gift of nature, but a testament to human patience, to the long work of building tools that let us see farther and deeper. As future observatories rise, like the Vera Rubin in Chile, we will be ready for the next visitors. Some will be small, faint, fleeting. Others may be vast, carrying the weight of mountains as Atlas did. Each one will add to the tapestry, giving us more fragments of a picture too large for any single object to reveal. But even if Atlas were the only one we had ever seen, it would have been enough. Enough to remind us that stars are not isolated, that planets are not alone, that life's building blocks may wander freely between worlds. Enough to remind us that mystery is not something to fear, but something to treasure. And so, while Atlas continues its silent voyage outward, we can let its presence linger in thought. It was a visitor, a teacher, a traveller whose story touched ours for just a moment. We will not follow it into the dark, but we will carry what it left behind. The gift of perspective, the comfort of wonder, and the quiet knowledge that the universe is always more than we can see. With Atlas now far beyond the inner planets, its light faint and its tail all but gone, the comet has become what it has been for most of its life, a silent wanderer, unseen, moving through the black ocean of interstellar space. And yet, here on Earth, its brief crossing continues to ripple outward, shaping the way we look at the universe and at ourselves. It is remarkable to think how chance played its role. The galaxy is vast beyond comprehension, and yet this body, flung from its home billions of years ago, happened to pass close enough for our instruments to notice. It is like a single grain of sand drifting across an endless desert, and we happen to glimpse it in the moonlight. What are the odds? And yet, such odds remind us that the universe is filled with movement, with countless wanderers we have not yet seen. The scientists who followed Atlas often speak of it not only in technical terms, but in tones of quiet reverence. Its orbit, its chemistry, its improbable weight, these were more than data points. They were signs that our models must be humbled, revised, expanded. It is not failure to be wrong in science, it is opportunity. Atlas was an opportunity to see our own limits and to stretch them a little further. For the wider world, its story reached people in different ways. Some heard in it the echo of ancient traditions, where comets were once feared as omens. But instead of fear, this comet brought curiosity. Others saw it as a messenger, a traveller reminding us that life and matter are not fixed in one place, but shared across the stars. And for many, it was simply a source of quiet wonder, that in the stillness of the night sky, something older than the sun itself could drift past notice for the first and only time. This sense of wonder is perhaps the greatest gift of astronomy. We cannot hold Atlas, we cannot control its path, we cannot even know its full story. But in observing it, in asking about it, we connect ourselves to something larger. Wonder becomes a form of belonging, a reminder that we too are part of the same universe that shaped this comet, that scattered it, that allowed it to cross our skies. In the years ahead, other visitors will come. The Vera Rubin Observatory, once its surveys begin, will almost certainly find them. Some will be small, some vast, some strange in ways we cannot yet predict. Each will add to the tapestry of knowledge that Atlas helped to weave. But Atlas will always be remembered as one of the first, one of the rare ones that came close enough for us to study in detail. A traveller older than Earth, carrying the chemistry of another star, reminding us of the richness of the galaxy we inhabit. And so it leaves us, fading into distance, but leaving behind a truth that will not fade. The universe is not still. It is alive with motion, with exchange, with stories carried silently across the dark. All we must do is continue to notice. As Atlas drifts farther into the black, it reminds us of something easy to forget, that time in the universe does not move as it does for us. For humanity, decades feel long, centuries almost unimaginable. For Atlas, decades are a blink, centuries a heartbeat, and billions of years an ordinary stretch of wandering. It has travelled since before our sun existed, since before Earth's oceans formed, since before life stirred in the dust of our world. To it our noticing was brief, just a passing glance, and then it was gone again, into silence. Yet that glance was enough. From the faint glow of its coma, from the chemistry of its gases, from the stubborn weight of its orbit, we learned that our galaxy is richer and stranger than we thought. We learned that interstellar space is not empty, but filled with travellers, and we learned that every star system, in its violence and in its birth, sends fragments outward, seeds of its own history, drifting across the Milky Way. What Atlas carried may have included the same molecules that shaped us, amino acids, simple alcohols, the carbon chains that, under the right conditions, become life. If so, then the story of life on Earth is not confined to Earth. It is a chapter in a book written across the stars, a story told again and again wherever conditions allow. And comets are the couriers of that story, scattering letters across the galaxy, waiting for worlds to read them. To imagine this is not to slip into fantasy, but to remain faithful to what science already suggests. We have found these molecules in comets before. We know that impacts delivered water to Earth in its earliest days. We know that life requires ingredients, and comets are rich with them. Atlas, with its unusual chemistry, may have carried a recipe we have never seen before. We cannot know for sure, but even the possibility expands our sense of connection to the universe. And so, Atlas leaves us with two kinds of gifts. The first is scientific, data, models, puzzles that will refine our understanding of planetary systems and interstellar matter. The second is human, wonder, humility, and the sense that we belong to a galaxy alive with exchange. In the stillness of the night sky, we may look upward and see only stars, but we now know that between those stars travellers are passing, some small, some vast, some carrying the frozen memories of other suns. Atlas was one of them, and though we will never see it again, it has joined our story, just as we have briefly joined its. By now, Atlas is far beyond the reach of most instruments, a dim and fading presence among the stars. It will continue outward, past the invisible frontier we call the heliopause, beyond the edge of the sun's protective bubble, into the true interstellar medium. Out there, The only forces guiding it will be the gentle pull of distant stars and the slow tides of the galaxy itself. For us, its journey becomes one of imagination. We will not follow it physically, but in thought we can trace its path. Past clouds of dust that may one day become new stars, past regions of emptiness where nothing has formed for billions of years, perhaps even past other wanderers like itself, dark, cold fragments of worlds scattered across the Milky Way. It may drift for another billion years, or 10 billion, never stopping, never returning, always silent. And yet, the silence of Atlas is not empty. It speaks in the questions it leaves behind. Why was it so heavy, resisting the push of its own outgassing? Why was it so rich in carbon dioxide, hinting at a birthplace colder than our outermost reaches? Why did its chemistry look different from what we expected, as though it carried the memory of another kind of system? Each question is a thread that scientists will follow, long after the comet itself has faded from sight. But beyond the science lies something softer. Atlas reminds us that we too are wanderers. Our planet circles a star, but that star itself circles the centre of the galaxy, carrying us through space at immense speed. To live on Earth is to drift as part of a system that is always moving, always travelling, always passing unseen landmarks in the dark. Atlas was not so different from us. It was a traveller, caught briefly in our path before continuing on. Perhaps this is why the story of such comets touches us so deeply. They reflect our own existence. They remind us that nothing in the universe is fixed, that everything is in motion, from stars to planets, to the dust that drifts between them. We are part of that same movement, sharing in the same endless journey. And so Atlas fades, but the lesson it carried remains, that the universe is not only vast but alive with exchange. That matter flows between systems, carrying histories and possibilities across unimaginable distances, and that in the act of noticing, even briefly, we are reminded that our world is not separate, but connected to the whole. Atlas has gone, but wonder remains. Now with Atlas slipping ever deeper into the outer dark, its memory lingers as a kind of gentle echo. The comet itself will never return, yet what it offered us continues to ripple through science and thought alike. It is as if the sky opened a small window, allowed us to glimpse something ancient, and then closed it again, leaving us to reflect on what we had seen. In that reflection, we recognize how fragile our opportunities are. Oumuamua appeared suddenly, too faint and too fast to study in detail. Borisov stayed longer, behaving like a more ordinary comet, giving us time to gather chemistry and images. And then Atlas arrived, larger, heavier, stranger than the others. 3 visitors in less than a decade, after centuries without any. Perhaps it is coincidence. Or perhaps it is the reward of better instruments, better vigilance. Whatever the reason, it reminds us of how young our knowledge still is. For every visitor we see, how many must have passed unseen? How many drifted across our solar system before telescopes strong enough to notice even existed? How many more will come in the centuries ahead? The thought is humbling. Interstellar space may be crowded with wanderers, and we have only just begun to recognize them. This truth ties us to the future. When the Vera Rubin Observatory begins its nightly surveys, its gaze will be wide enough to catch faint, fast-moving lights that older telescopes might miss. Each discovery will bring us closer to answering the questions Atlas raised. Are giants like it rare or common? Do most interstellar visitors resemble Borisov, with chemistry similar to our own comets? Or do they carry entirely new recipes, new patterns of ice and dust, born from alien systems we cannot yet see? And beyond the questions of science, there is the gift of wonder. To know that Atlas was older than our Sun, older than our Earth, and that it still passed close enough for us to study, this alone is enough to quiet the noise of daily life. It is a reminder of time's vastness, of scale beyond imagination. When we look up at the stars, we are not looking at a backdrop. We are looking into a living galaxy, where fragments move endlessly, carrying stories across billions of years. Atlas has left us now, but in leaving, it placed us within that larger story. We are no longer only observers of our own solar system. We are witnesses to the galaxy itself, to its exchanges, its travellers, its drifting archives of memory. And if one comet can teach so much, then what will the next bring? What histories will it carry? What new questions will it leave us with? These are thoughts to carry into the night, when the sky is still and the stars are bright. Somewhere, even now, another wanderer may already be on its way. Somewhere in the far distance, Atlas is now little more than a shadow among stars. Its glow is gone, its gases have settled into nothingness. What remains is a silent, dark body slowly receding into a space where our instruments cannot follow. To us, it has become invisible. But invisibility does not mean absence. It continues, as it always has, a solitary traveller in a galaxy too vast to chart in full. And yet, even without its light, Atlas is still with us. It lives in the archives of observatories, in the notebooks of astronomers, in the quiet awe of those who learned of its story. It lives in the shift it created in our understanding of interstellar visitors. It lives in the way it reminded us that discovery is not always dramatic. It can be as soft as noticing a faint dot move across the sky, and realizing that it carries an ancient history. For scientists, the comet is now a reference point. Its numbers, size, weight, chemistry are written down, tested, argued over. Its strangeness, resisting the push of its own jets, carrying unusual amounts of carbon dioxide, remains an open case. Was it unique, or part of a larger pattern we have not yet uncovered? The answer lies ahead, waiting for more visitors to compare. For the rest of us, Atlas is a story, a reminder that the universe is not distant or abstract, but alive with motion. That even as we live our small lives, immense bodies older than our sun pass nearby, silent and unnoticed except by those who watch carefully. And that in their passing, we are offered perspective, a chance to remember how brief and precious our own moment is. Perhaps the greatest legacy of Atlas is this sense of connection. It did not bring us fear, as comets once did in the minds of ancient peoples. Instead, it brought us humility, curiosity, and wonder. It showed us that the galaxy is not separate systems sealed away, but a web of exchange. Matter flows outward from stars, planets are shaped and shattered, fragments drift between systems, carrying chemistry that may one day seed life. Atlas was one such fragment, and for a short time it touched our story. Now it continues into silence. But silence too has meaning. In its absence, we're reminded to keep watching, to keep preparing, for the next visitor will come, and when it does, we will remember Atlas and how it taught us to expect the unexpected. The night sky is never empty. It is full of travellers. Some we see, most we do not. But every so often, one passes close enough to remind us of the truth. The universe is vast, alive, and always moving. Atlas has gone, but the wonder it stirred will remain, carried not in the sky, but in us. It is easy to think of Atlas as something separate from us, a frozen mountain of ice and dust simply passing through, but in truth, it is connected to us in ways more profound than sight. The elements it carried, carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, are the same elements we carry in our own bodies. The chemistry that shaped it billions of years ago is the same chemistry that makes life on Earth possible. To watch Atlas was, in a quiet way, to watch a mirror of our own beginnings. Consider what it meant for Earth in its earliest days. Our planet was young, hot, barren. The oceans had not yet formed. The surface boiled beneath a hostile sky. And then, over countless centuries, comets struck, carrying water, carrying organics, delivering the materials that would one day allow life to emerge. Without those impacts, Earth may have remained dry and empty. In that sense, comets are not only wanderers, they are bringers of possibility. Atlas belonged to another system, but the principle is the same. Somewhere far away, around another star, it was born. Somewhere, the same chaos that shaped our solar system, collisions, ejections, the pull of giant planets, cast it outward. It travelled not for centuries or millennia, but for billions of years, and then, by chance, it brushed past our world. Perhaps it carries organics. Perhaps it carries the same molecules that once seeded Earth. If so, then Atlas is part of a greater truth, that life is not only local, but cosmic. We may never hold a sample of Atlas in our hands, but we hold its lesson, that the ingredients of life are not rare, that the galaxy shares them freely, scattering them across light years, across epochs, across star systems that may never meet. Life, then, may not be the exception. It may be the natural expression of a universe that is always exchanging, always moving. This is the quiet comfort of astronomy. We look into the dark, and we see more than distance. We see connection. We see patterns that bind us to stars we cannot name, to systems we will never reach. We see that our Earth is not alone in its story, but part of a larger rhythm that plays across the galaxy. Atlas has left us now, its light fading, its orbit carrying it beyond sight. But in its passing, it left behind this reminder. We are not isolated. We are not separate. We are woven into a universe alive with exchange, where even a comet drifting in silence for billions of years can brush past us and say, without words, that we belong to something vast. As Atlas retreats into darkness, it becomes one with the countless uncharted bodies moving through the galaxy. We will no longer see it, and no spacecraft will follow it. It will vanish into silence, just as it has for billions of years before. But what lingers here, with us, is the awareness that we were witnesses, that, for a fleeting moment, human eyes and instruments rested on a traveller from another star. This is the essence of astronomy. Not to possess, but to notice. The night sky is full of motions too slow or too faint for our senses, and yet when we develop the patience to look, those motions reveal their stories. Atlas reminded us that the universe is not static, not separate, but a constant conversation of matter and time. There is also comfort in knowing that this visitor was not the last. The galaxy is restless, and stars are always shedding fragments. Planets collide, systems evolve, giants eject debris. Some of that debris drifts across the void for billions of years until chance brings it into the reach of another system, ours or someone else's. Atlas is proof that such exchanges happen, and will continue to happen. Somewhere, even now, another interstellar comet is on its way. The work of future generations will be to welcome them more fully. With observatories like Vera Rubin, with missions perhaps one day designed to chase and intercept such bodies, we may go beyond spectra and light curves. We may hold in our hands samples from another star, grains of dust older than our sun, chemistry shaped in a place we can never visit. That day will come, not soon but eventually, for science is slow and the universe is patient. Until then, the gift Atlas leaves us is more than data. It is perspective. It is the reminder that our solar system is not closed, that the galaxy is alive with wanderers, and that our own story is interwoven with theirs. For all of human history we have gazed upward with questions. Atlas was one of the rare answers, even if the answer was incomplete. It told us, you're not alone in this cosmos. You're part of a larger pattern. And so, even as it disappears, the comet remains. Not in the sky, but in us. In the way we think about origins, in the way we imagine life, in the way we carry wonder forward. We do not need to see Atlas again for it to have changed us. The night is full of silence, but in that silence, Atlas still speaks. The comet's journey reminds us of a truth that is easy to overlook, that the universe shares itself. It is not a collection of separate systems, isolated and sealed. It is a web where fragments move freely, carrying histories and ingredients from one place to another. Atlas was a fragment of such a web, a messenger that spoke without words, carrying the chemistry of a star we may never know. For Earth, the message was not dramatic. It was quiet. No blazing trails in the sky, no spectacle visible to all. Instead, it was a faint point of light, noticed only through patient instruments, tracked by careful observers, revealed through mathematics and spectra. Yet in that quietness lay its power. Not all wonders announce themselves loudly. Some arrive in stillness and leave us changed simply by being noticed. What Atlas told us is that our solar system is open. Material flows in and out. Once, long ago, such flows may have brought us water, carbon, organics, the materials that allowed life to take hold. Now with Atlas, we see that the exchange still happens. Across light years, across billions of years, fragments wander. Some pass by unnoticed, others enter our reach, and each one reminds us that Earth's story is tied to a larger whole. This changes how we see life itself. If comets scatter organics across the galaxy, then life may not be unique. It may be common, a pattern that repeats whenever the right ingredients find the right conditions. Earth, then, is not an exception, but a participant. The atoms in our bodies, the water in our oceans, may once have belonged to other systems. And now, through travellers like Atlas, we glimpse how those exchanges continue. The beauty of this realization is its humility. We do not stand apart from the universe. We are not its masters. We are its children, made from its dust, carried along in its cycles. Atlas is a reminder of that bond. It did not come to us with answers, but with perspective, showing us how small we are, and yet how deeply connected. In the end, Atlas was not about solving mysteries quickly. It was about deepening them, leaving us with questions to carry forward. What other chemistries exist among the stars? How many more giants wander unseen? How often do the seeds of life scatter into new worlds? These are questions we cannot yet answer, but they are questions worth holding. For that is what astronomy gives us. Not certainty, but wonder. And wonder is enough. In the silence that follows Atlas's passing, we begin to realize that the comet's greatest contribution was not only scientific but also emotional. It gave us the gift of perspective, a sense that we are participants in something unimaginably vast, a galaxy where fragments from one sun can wander across to another, bridging distances that no spacecraft has yet crossed. When we think of interstellar space, we often picture emptiness, a dark ocean with no shores, no currents, nothing to break the stillness. Yet Atlas showed us that even in that immensity there is movement. The galaxy is not static. It is alive with travellers. Some are small, some immense, some ordinary, some strange. Each carries within it the story of its origin. Each is a note in the music of the Milky Way drifting between stars. And here on Earth, we were fortunate enough to hear one of those notes, to study it, to marvel at it, to let it remind us that our place in the cosmos is not defined only by what we can touch, but by what we can imagine. For imagination too is a form of discovery. When we wonder about Atlas's birthplace, we are already extending our minds to stars we cannot see. When we reflect on its chemistry, we are already learning how different worlds may be. And when we consider its age, older than our sun, we are reminded that the universe carries memory in forms we can scarcely grasp. For the scientists who measured its mass, its light, its gases, Atlas was a challenge. For those who heard its story from afar, it was a wonder. And for all of us, whether through data or through dreams, it was a reminder of connection. Perhaps this is why comets have always touched human imagination so deeply. They are not constant like the stars, nor predictable like the planets. They appear suddenly, blaze for a while, and then vanish, leaving us with more questions than answers. They mirror our own lives, brief, luminous, fleeting. Atlas was no different, except in scale. A wanderer larger, older, heavier than most, yet still ephemeral in our sky. In the centuries ahead, people may forget its name, but its influence will remain, folded into scientific models, remembered as part of the early history of interstellar astronomy. And even if its details fade, its story will live on in the way it expanded our view of what is possible. For now, Atlas is gone. But the universe is still moving, still sending wanderers our way, and somewhere, perhaps even now, another interstellar traveller is beginning to approach. We do not know when we will meet it, or what it will reveal, but when it comes, we will be ready to listen. Until then, we carry the memory of Atlas, not as a loss, but as a gift. And so, the story of Atlas draws to its natural close, not the close of the comet itself, for its journey continues on into the darkness, but the close of our brief encounter with it. For us, its chapter has ended. For the galaxy, it is only another line in a story written across billions of years. When we think back on what Atlas gave us, the details remain sharp. A nucleus 5.5 kilometers wide, a mass of 33 billion tons, jets of carbon dioxide that defied our expectations, a trajectory that confirmed its interstellar birth. Yet the meaning of those details reaches beyond science alone. They remind us that discovery is not simply about cataloguing facts. It is about the way those facts shift our place within the universe. Atlas shifted us. It told us that the galaxy is not still, that systems share their fragments, that the chemistry of life may not belong to one star alone. It told us that wanderers older than Earth itself can pass by, unnoticed by most, but transformative for those who watch carefully. It told us that the line between here and elsewhere is not as rigid as we once believed, and in this way, Atlas becomes more than a comet. It becomes a reminder of perspective. When we look at the night sky, we're not looking out at a backdrop of fixed stars. We are looking into a living field of motion, where fragments cross paths, where matter travels, where the seeds of possibility scatter. Some of those seeds may one day root in places we cannot see. Some may already have. The universe, then, is not silent emptiness. It is a patient exchange. Stars form, planets grow, comets wander, and every so often one of those wanderers brushes past another sun, another world, another set of eyes. Atlas was one of those. For a brief season it brushed past us, and though it has left, its story remains. A quiet reminder of the threads that bind us to the larger whole. Perhaps in some distant age, it will pass near another star, and beings unknown will wonder at its chemistry, its orbit, its stubborn weight. Perhaps they too will measure it, puzzle over it, and carry away their own questions. In that possibility lies a kind of comfort, that what we glimpse is part of a cycle far larger than ourselves. Atlas is gone, but wonder is not. The night sky is full of wanderers, and as long as we keep looking, we will never truly be alone in the dark.